Sugar is one of the most misunderstood foods in nutrition. It's blamed for inflammation, diabetes, weight gain. But what if much of what you've heard about sugar isn't actually supported by scientific evidence? In this video, I'll show you what the research really says. Before we dive in, who am I? My name is Igor. I'm the best-selling author of the book Type 2 Diabetes Reversal Secrets. As well, I run an online personal training company that specializes in type 2 diabetes reversal. And just so you don't think I'm some random guy on the internet with an opinion in a YouTube channel, I'm actually a personal trainer who works with real life clients to help them reverse their diabetes, like Mandy, for whom it ran in her family for at least 16 years. And I mean, she had it for 16 years, and we were able to turn hers around. Here is Marie, who also was able to bring down her insulin dose from 11 units down to 5 units, as well as Dana, who was able to turn around her prediabetes and basically normalize her blood sugar levels. So this isn't just theoretical. Now, let's dive in. Myth number one is that sugar is inflammatory. Here is a study examining whether sugar is indeed inflammatory. This is a meta-analysis titled Effect of Dietary Sugar Intake on Biomarkers of Subclinical Inflammation. And here's what they did. In this meta-analysis, the researchers aggregated, there were the many studies, and the studies compared four different sugars against each other. One is fructose, as you find in fruits, glucose, sucrose, which is a combination of fructose and glucose. That's actual table sugar. And lastly, the devil, high fructose corn syrup. And here were the results. None of those sugars raised inflammation as long as they were within a person's caloric limit. However, many of them raised inflammation when they were above caloric limit. So is it that sugar is inflammatory or that excess calories are inflammatory? This meta-analysis heavily points towards excess calories being inflammatory, regardless of the source of those calories. Here's another study, or rather analysis, titled Effect of Important Food Sources of Fructose-Containing Sugars on Inflammatory Biomarkers. Now, this one was actually had some very surprising findings. In this meta-analysis, they compared pop, or diet carbonated beverages, to fruit juices to dark chocolate. And here's what they found. Pop, or carbonated beverages, didn't increase any inflammatory markers as long as people didn't gain weight. Again, that's the emphasis. Fruit juices actually lowered one inflammatory marker called HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, by an average of 1.09, again, as long as people didn't gain weight. And dark chocolate actually lowered another inflammatory marker called IL-6, or interleukin 6, by 8.79 picograms per milliliter. In other words, again, the main message is this. As long as sugar doesn't make you gain body fat, it doesn't increase inflammation. If sugar does make you gain body fat, then it increases inflammation. But again, that's not sugar's problem. That's excess calories. That's broader. So myth number one, busted. Myth number two is that sugar causes diabetes. And very simply, this is very logical to to a person who has no background in physiology, nutrition, etc. The thinking is very simplistic. Diabetes is high blood sugar. Therefore, if you consume sugar, it raises blood sugar. But it's not quite that simple. Here is a systematic review titled Sugar in Type 2 Diabetes. After reviewing many studies, what the researchers found is that excess sugar can promote weight gain, thus type 2 diabetes mellitus, through extra calories, but has no unique diabetogenic effect at physiological levels. Again, what are they really saying here? Excess calories are what cause diabetes, not specifically sugar, as long as it's within a person's caloric limit. Here's another one titled Sucrose taken during mixed meal has no additional hyperglycemic action over isocaloric amounts of starch in well-controlled diabetics. So here, the researchers divided participants into two groups. Group number one was given sugar. Group number two was given an equivalent amount of calories as group number one, but in bread. And here were the results. Blood sugar levels in both groups were identical. So just because sugar is sweet and bread is not, doesn't mean sugar raises blood sugar more than an equivalent amount of carbs in another source. So I know this goes against what a lot of us have been indoctrinated. So what about all the studies saying that sugar is correlated to diabetes? Well, sure, sugar is correlated to diabetes, but doesn't mean it causes diabetes. Scientists understand this language. But there's a difference between something is correlated to something else versus something causes something else. Correlation does not imply causation. Myth number three is that sugar increases body fat. Let's bust this myth right now. Here is a study titled Effect of Eucaloric High and Low Sucrose Diets with Identical Macronutrient Profiles on Insulin Resistance and Vascular Risk. In this study, researchers divided participants into two groups. Group number one ate a low sugar diet. Sugar made up only 10% of their total calories. Group number two ate a high sugar diet. In this group, sugar made up 25% of their daily calories. That's very high. However, despite the sugar content being different, both groups had the same number of calories. So this was a pretty well-controlled study. And at the end of 6 weeks, the weight before was unchanged, and the weight after was unchanged. In other words, there was no unique um, fattening effect of sugar on people any more so than calories. Calories are the primary driver of body fat, not so much the composition of those calories. Here is another study titled Comparison of 5% versus 15% sucrose intake as part of a eucaloric diet in overweight and obese subjects. Effects on insulin sensitivity, glucose metabolism, vascular compliance, body composition, and lipid profile. They found the same results as the previous study. Basically, when sugar is eaten within a person's caloric limit, it doesn't increase body fat. When somebody goes above their caloric limit, whether it's due to sugar or other sources, they will gain body fat. And so that doesn't mean sugar exactly is good, but it's not the devil it's been made out to be. So when is sugar bad? Sugar is bad if somebody has pre-existing high cholesterol levels. In other words, if somebody does not have currently high cholesterol, sugar is not that bad. So it does have high cholesterol, sugar is pretty bad. And so here's a study titled Sugar Sweetened Beverages, Obesity, Diabetes mellitus, and Cardiovascular Disease Risk. So when sugary drinks were removed from the diets of dyslipidemic people, and let me just clarify some terminology. Dyslipidemic means people with either high total cholesterol, high LDL, low HDL, or high triglycerides. So when sugary drinks were removed from their diets, triglycerides decreased between 10 and 20%. LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, decreased by 5 to 10%. And HDL, the good cholesterol, increased by 5 to 10% without any other changes. So for people with high cholesterol, yeah, sugar is definitely bad. When else is so why is sugar so often blamed if the evidence does not bear out that it's the devil that has been made out to be? First of all, a lot of research is done in rats, mice, and petri dishes. But let me tell you, in a very basic principle of science is this: you can only generalize to the population study. If you study mice and rats, you can only transfer that knowledge to other mice and rats. You can't really transfer that to people. To learn how it affects people, you have to use studies that study people. So that's one. That's one reason why sugar is often blamed. Another reason is that simply many studies correlate sugar to bad health outcomes. And again, correlation is not causation. What's another reason why sugar is often to blame? Simply, it's trendy to blame sugar. It's the blind leading the blind. You see some big influencer blaming sugar for all of life's problems, including world wars, life insurance rising, etc. And yet, there is a very, very weak relationship between somebody's ability to gain followers and their ability to explain science clearly and look at it objectively without blinding yourself by dogma and ideology. Now, if you want to dive much deeper into this, I have a special video titled A Diabetes Reversal Checklist. This video is not available on YouTube, but it is available to you at this link on your screen right now or in the description below.